Are you juggling full-time work and childcare? Does all the responsibility seem to fall on your shoulders that your head is just spinning? So when you ask for help, when you ask others to help you, do you end up doing the task anyway because it just seems like way easier and less hassle? Are you ready to take a stand for people to take you seriously, to become a confident delegator and still be loving and nice? If this sounds like something that you want to learn, you're going to want to tune into today's episode of the Coffee and Confidence Show. So today's episode is Delegating Confidently. It's episode 15, and I'm your host, Kelly Carrigan. I'm an assertiveness coach, and my business is EmpowerMe Coaching. I am helping people pleasers worldwide calm the chaos in their life so that they can live a balanced life. So what is a people pleaser? If you've never heard this term before, a people pleaser is a person who is constantly giving, is that really nice person. You can always count on them to do whatever you ask. And they selflessly give, and give, that they have no time left for them, that they've lost their sense of self. And so that is basically, that is a people pleaser. So I'm here today. I'm flying solo today on the Coffee and Confidence Show to bring a special training for you all. So you're going to want to grab your pen and paper, your coffee, tea, your water, your shake, whatever it is that you fancy, and tune into today's episode. You know, I'm planning to run it for a half an hour. This is a live show, so I can see all of your questions, all of your comments. You know, if you're out there, if you're watching live, please give me a hello. Let me know that you're here. Feel free to share out the video to whoever might need a little more confidence in delegating, all right? So yesterday when I was online, a friend of mine had this post on her wall, and I was like, OMG, that is so in line with the show that I'm doing tomorrow. I want to use that. I want to bring that up and kind of get it going as a conversation starter. So I'm just going to read it. It says, her post was, excuse me, my husband and I are both equal parents. I'd love to know why people always ask women how they do the whole work-life balance, but don't ask men how they juggle it. Are women just expected to create that balance? And I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a popular topic right now. And I know that a lot of people out there can relate. They're probably wondering, like, yeah, why is that? So this is my theory on it, is that, well, it's generations of it. So I teach my clients, and I, teach people that what we experience up till the age about 8 or 10 becomes our normal. Like, have you ever noticed as you've gotten older, like, oh yeah, I am my mother, or oh yeah, I am my father, right? So our environment, we tend to recreate our environment as we grow into adults. So it's generations of doing, right? Taking care of things and multitasking and being the provider and taking care of the meals, working a full-time job. I know that was the case in my household. My mom was, a full-time worker, and she was very active, and we always had healthy meals, right? It's generations of it is one reason. Another reason that I watched myself do personally is that I've created that expectation. So here's a story from, years ago when we lived back in Kitchener before my daughter was born. And, I created that expectation that when I came home from work, I made the dinner and I took care of the meals and whatnot. So one day that I came home and I was like, oh, like I'm just exhausted. I'm so hungry. I'm like looking at my husband sitting on the couch, and he's like, whatever. He's had a hard day too. And I'm like, oh, what do you want to eat? I don't know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's not getting it. Like he is not getting up off his butt to go make us dinner. Like, can't he see that I do it all the time? And can't he see that I've had a hard day? And like, I just wanted him to take care of it. So no, instead of asking for help, I went to the kitchen and I was like upset. I was like banging the pots and pans and slamming the cupboards. And I was creating that frustration myself, right? I didn't ask for help. Many women overgive. They overgive of their time, overgive of their energy, and of their mental resources, that they deplete themselves. There's definitely a lack of boundaries. This is part and parcel what I do with my clients is teach assertiveness skills. Now, assertiveness is just not communication, it's boundaries as well, right? So we don't communicate properly to set those boundaries, to know what is expected of one another. A lot of times there's passive communication or passive aggressive communication that doesn't, it goes nowhere. It's like, it's the wheels just spinning. It's like you're talking, but nothing's getting resolved, right? And another thing to consider is the more you overgive, the more you attract the undergivers. So here's a perfect example. When my son was a teenager, when he was still living at home, I was like, okay, it's your job to put out the garbage. He's like, okay, it's my job to put out the garbage. But then what I would do, because I am really good at anticipating the needs of others, I'd be like, oh, he's running late this morning for school. Like, oh, he's really busy. He's stressed out. He doesn't even have his lunch packed. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I will help him out by putting out the garbage. Whatever, did that. And I probably did that 2 weeks in a row. And then the third week, it's like, I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, aren't you putting the garbage out? And he's like, oh, I didn't think I was doing it anymore. I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah, you're just doing it. So why do I have to do it? Right? So it's just like, if you're going to do it, there's no reason for anybody else to step up to the plate. So those are just some things to consider, with that whole thing, right? Ask yourself, are you doing things for other people without them asking, right? So are you anticipating the needs of others? So those are some things to ask, right? Because women, I know myself, some men too, but typically women, right? I say typically women because women tend to be the nurturers, the doers. We've all got all this mental stress because we're really good at anticipating the needs, right? We're always thinking ahead. We're very good at multitasking. And, if we don't have proper boundaries set, if we don't have the communication tools that we need to communicate effectively to our spouse, to our coworkers, to our kids, then it can cause us a lot of stress that we really don't need in our lives. And it causes us to, lower our self-esteem. It causes us to get snappy and angry. It causes us to react instead of respond. So these are all some things to consider, if you're feeling overwhelmed with the whole work-life balancing and getting people to pitch in. So I just want to acknowledge I see we have some people online. We've got Carrigan says, hi, Kelly. Hey, good morning, Carrigan. Nice to see you online. Thank you so much for tuning in. Right, so what I want you to, on your pen and paper, I want you to write down this question. Where are you overgiving? So that's the first thing to analyze in yourself is where are you overgiving of your time, of your energy, of your mental energy? So here's something to consider. If you are constantly thinking that, I'm just going to use your spouse for an example. So if you're constantly thinking, okay, your spouse needs to do this, he needs to start doing that, he needs to stop doing this. If you are using up a lot of like your mental space, trying to run someone else's life or trying to change someone else's behavior, you're overgiving. That's an example of overgiving because you are spending too much of your mental time thinking of someone else, trying to run someone else's life or trying to change them, right? So you need to stop doing that. So again, where in your life are you overgiving? Okay. Now to delegate confidently, right? So what stops us from delegating properly or effectively? Well, because we ask, hey, can you do this? They don't do it. It's like, oh my gosh, really? So it's too much trouble to hold others accountable. So what happens? We end up doing it anyway. And that's how you end up taking on too much, is because even though you asked, perhaps they said yes or didn't give you an answer, you go ahead and do it anyways, right? The whole example of me taking the garbage out for my son. Well, he started to see me doing it. So he's just like, well, whatever. Like, I don't need the extra responsibility, so I'm not going to take the initiative to do it, right? So it involves stepping back a little bit. So I have this written down for you guys here. So step number one is set the expectation, okay? So to delegate confidently, you need to set the expectation ahead of time. So just think of, your child getting home from school, your husband getting home from work, or your spouse, I shouldn't always say your husband, but your spouse getting home from work. And if you spring things on them, okay, now I need you to do this. Oh, can you do this? Can you do that? It's going to be like, whoa, 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 right? Like nobody likes to have things sprung on them last minute. Just think of when you're coming home after an exhausting day in the mental space that you're in. So perhaps you're like, oh, I just can't wait to cuddle up on the couch. I just so need some downtime. And then if somebody is springing, to-do list on you, think of it. How are you going to feel? So it's really good to set the expectation ahead of time. For instance, with my daughter in the morning, remember when you get home from school, it is your job to unpack your lunch bag, right? Set the expectation so that when I remind her after school, holding her accountable, when I remind her after school, will still likely go, ugh. But it will be less, it'll be less likely to have a negative reaction because that is the expectation. So communication is key. Right? So by doing that, it also builds trust. It's good communication. I've got my notes here. And it also creates some respect, right? Because you're like, you know what? I respect you enough to communicate with you ahead of time as to what is going on, what's going to take place, what's going to happen, right? Same thing if you're at work, if you've got new employees, for instance, if you've got employees coming on, set the expectation. It helps them visualize what is going to happen, what's going to take place, how it's going to take place, so that they feel more confident in the work that they have to do in the future. Kathy says good morning, or she says hello. Hello, Kathy. I say good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and being here. So that is step number one to delegating confidently, is set the expectation. Okay. The second thing that you're going to want to consider is, I'm just checking my notes here. So if you want people to take you seriously and do what you ask, then you need to really watch how you're asking, okay? So the second thing that you're going to ask yourself is it negotiable? All right? So let me give some examples, right? So is it negotiable? I'm thinking of this example, picture a kid tipped back, feet up on the table, playing the handheld video game. So eating a snack, I just blipped out there for a second. Feet up on the table, eating a snack, playing a video game, and you say, hey, Johnny, would you like to take your feet off the table? No. Would I like to take my feet off the table? No, right? Chances are you're not going to have that kid take his feet off the table because you're asking, would you like to take your feet off the table? You're giving that kid a choice. So if they're quite comfortable, they're not going to take their feet off the table. But if that is a non-negotiable in your house, like no feet on the table, then you say feet off the table right away, right? Same thing with, like at work, would you like to do the vacuuming at the end of the day? Well, by asking that way, you're giving that person a choice. So if it's a non-negotiable, this is what needs to happen, right? And then to delegate properly, you want to make sure that that person knows how to do the task, where the tools are, and how to do it properly, especially if it is their first time doing the task, right? So in that role, you want to be the investigator, right? You can just ask them, do you know where the tools are for that job? Do you know how to do that properly? Do you understand how this works, right? So it's telling them from A to Z on how to do it. I remember a few years back, my husband was telling me, he's like, you have, like, when you're teaching somebody or when you're asking somebody to do whatever it is, a task for the first time, he's like, you have to treat it as if they've never, ever done it before. Don't ever assume that they know how to do it, right? What was it? I was trying to think of what we were cooking a couple of months ago. We were cooking something. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it is. Anyways, we were cooking something and I asked my husband to take care of, I don't know, maybe the rice. I'll use rice as an example. And anyway, he just puts rice and water in the pot and starts boiling it. And it's like, well, how do I strain this? How do I strain the water out of it? It's like, well, you don't. It's like, what? With rice, when you're making rice, it's an exact measurement of water to rice. And it's not like pasta where you strain the water out. So I assumed he knew how to do that. But no, he doesn't, right? So never assume that somebody knows how to do it, okay? So is it negotiable is the second one. And be careful on how you ask. And the third one, I've got the word accountable for you. So this is a big one. This is the most important, is holding yourself accountable and holding others accountable, okay? So if you ask, for instance, asking my son to take out the garbage, and he said, yes, that is my job, or we've established that, yes, that is his job, then let it be their job. If they said that they're going to take care of, a certain task, let them take care of it. So holding yourself accountable is not rushing in to do it if it's not done when you want it done, okay? And then the other part is holding the other person accountable. So if your spouse said that they're going to make dinner and it's already 5:30 and they're sitting, on the couch watching TV, and it's to kindly ask them and kindly remind them, hey, I noticed it's 5:30. You agreed to make dinner. When do you plan to start? Right? It's that simple. The tricky part is to not do it and not get frustrated, but it's just to hold them accountable and communicating lovingly and effectively. So those are the 3 tips that I have for you guys today on delegating confidently. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear if you found it useful, what your thoughts are. Do you have an easy time delegating, or is it a little tough for you? If you do find it tough, communicating and delegating confidently, please reach out. I'd love to help you with something specific that you're working through. Yeah. I noticed that it's the Coffee and Confidence show, and I forgot to do my coffee piece. Well, in my cup today, I've got Timmy's. Today has been, we slept through the alarm. It's like a hat day. Looking confident in my hat. So it was like a quick run out to Timmy's after I dropped my daughter off at the bus stop. So I'd love to hear from you as well as to what is in your cup this morning. All right, next week on the Coffee and Confidence show, I have a returning guest, Tabitha Foster. So next week, we're gonna just do like show number 2 of how to unlock your confidence. I know when Tabitha was here last month and we talked about the chakras and opening up your solar plexus. It was an amazing episode and she had some really fabulous tips for everyone. So I'm really excited to have her as a returning guest next week. All right, what's Cara Dawn saying? Cara Dawn saying OJ. She's got OJ in her cup. That's awesome. All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning, and I look forward to seeing you again next week on the Coffee and Confidence Show, episode 16, Unlock Your Confidence, number 2. All right, have a great day, guys. Bye.